It began as nothing more than a relaxed evening among acquaintances. My wife Arya had been invited to a small gathering at one of her colleagues' homes, and though I wasn't particularly enthusiastic about going, she persuaded me with the promise that it would be enjoyable. The house buzzed with laughter, conversations overlapping, glasses clinking, and the easy rhythm of people enjoying themselves. Arya was right at home, sliding into the center of attention as naturally as breathing. She had that energy, that glow, the kind of presence that pulled people toward her. I stayed on the edges, nursing my drink, engaging in bits of small talk, chuckling politely when it felt appropriate, but mostly just observing. She was radiant, weaving stories from her work that had people hanging on her words, her laughter floating easily above the din. I admired her from a quiet distance, as I often did. She belonged in these rooms filled with chatter and charm. And then the tone of the evening shifted, all because of one so-called harmless game. Someone suggested a playful round of what-ifs, questions about celebrity crushes, dream partners, and lighthearted hypotheticals. The laughter built as people tossed out their answers. Then, almost too casually, someone asked Arya a question meant to amuse. If you could trade your husband for any man, who would it be? It was framed as a joke. But her answer came without pause, without even a glance in my direction. She lifted her glass, smiling with that same sparkle she had been carrying all evening, and said with an easy laugh, "Oh, I'd trade my husband for him any day." Her hand gestured toward one of her colleagues, tall, broad-shouldered, self-assured. He was the type of man who carried himself like he already knew the effect he had on others. The room erupted in laughter. The man gave a smug little smile and raised his glass as though basking in the compliment, and I sat there still silent. The sound of everyone else's laughter felt deafening in my ears, because in that instant, it wasn't a game. Not to me. My wife had just in front of an entire room stripped away my dignity for the sake of a punchline. Maybe she thought it was funny. Maybe she didn't think at all. But what I felt was something far sharper than humor. I could sense eyes on me waiting. Some amused, expecting me to laugh it off with good humor. Others curious, wondering if I would react, maybe even explode. Arya, though, didn't notice, or didn't care. She was still sipping her drink, riding the wave of laughter she had ignited. That's when I understood I had two choices. I could swallow the humiliation, force a smile, and pretend it hadn't cut as deep as it did, or I could speak. Not in anger, not with shouting, but with the kind of truth that could silence a room. I set my glass down carefully, stood, and in a calm, steady voice said, "Interesting you'd say that, Arya, because if trading me comes that easily to you, then maybe you never truly deserved me to begin with." The room's energy shattered. Laughter stopped dead. The air shifted heavy, brittle. Arya's smile faltered mid-expression, her glass frozen in her hand. Faces that had been full of amusement moments before turned uncomfortable, guilty even. The man she'd chosen as her replacement shifted in his seat, suddenly less certain, eyes darting anywhere but mine. I kept my voice even deliberate. "I came here tonight because my wife wanted me here." I stayed quiet, smiled, supported her even when I felt out of place. And in return, she decided the best way to entertain her friends was to humiliate me. Let me be clear. Marriage isn't a joke, and a husband isn't some prop to be traded for a laugh. Respect is what holds it all together. Without that, the rest is meaningless. Arya's cheeks flushed red. She opened her mouth, starting, "I didn't mean." I raised a hand, stopping her. "You did mean it. You said it. You thought it was clever that it would get a laugh, and you chose your husband as the punchline. That tells me everything I need to know about what I mean to you." The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Someone coughed. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats, eyes darting to the floor, to the walls, anywhere but toward me or Arya. I gave her one final look. Not angry, not harsh, just heavy with disappointment, and then turned to the host. "Thank you for the evening. I'll see myself out." And I left, leaving Arya frozen in the center of the room, the weight of her own words pressing down on her harder than she ever expected. When she came home later, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She tried to explain, insisting it was just a joke, that everyone knew she hadn't meant it. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I only told her the truth. If you can laugh about trading me away in front of strangers, maybe you should ask yourself if you value me at all tonight. You didn't act like a wife. You acted like someone who's forgotten what respect means. She broke down then, sobbing, pleading for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. But something had shifted inside me. Forgiveness might come with time. Forgetting never. Words have weight, and once spoken, they can't be taken back. In the days after, whispers spread quietly through her workplace. Some colleagues sympathized with me. Others shook their heads at her carelessness. The man she had singled out avoided her entirely, unwilling to stay tethered to the embarrassment. The laughter she thought she had earned at my expense circled back on her. Harder, sharper, and far more humiliating than she'd imagined. I didn't have to punish her. I didn't need to remind her again. My response that night had already said everything. It had silenced the room, silenced her, and reminded everyone, including Arya, that marriage is not entertainment and respect is not optional. I don't remember the food that was served or half the jokes that were told that evening, but I will never forget her words. I trade my husband for him any day, and I will always remember mine. Then maybe you never deserved me in the first place. That was the night the laughter died.